Okay, take a quick second and think about a question for me. Is reading a massive, detailed Wikipedia article on the biochemical release of dopamine literally the exact same thing as actually hugging someone you love? It's a simple question, right? But if you really pause and feel the difference between analyzing an emotion and actually experiencing it, you hit on something profoundly deep. You hit on the core tension of what it means to be human. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something absolutely fascinating together. We're diving into the fundamental architecture of knowing and being. We're going to explore how we interact with reality, how we construct our social world, and ultimately, how we can find a true balance between living our lives and understanding them. Let's dive right in. Here is a quick roadmap of where we're heading on our journey today. We'll start with the two ways we experience reality, move into the architecture of knowing, look at how we construct our social world, examine the map versus the territory, and finally, arrive at the human threshold. All right, Section 1, two ways to experience reality. Or, as we'll look at it, the axis of knowing versus the axis of being. This right here is the foundational duality of our entire existence. Human beings live reality through awareness, but we represent that reality through language. Think of it like this. On the one side, we have awareness. This is the world as it's actually lived. It's existential. It gives your experience immediate presence. Think about a sudden sensation, like, say, accidentally touching a hot stove. Before you even have the words to formulate what just happened, that pain is violently present in your awareness. On the other side, we have language. This is the world we can describe. It's analytical, and it gives our experience conceptual form. We experience things before we describe them for sure, but language is what allows us to organize that continuous, chaotic flow of life into neat categories. It really all boils down to this super profound yet simple truth. The word red is not the experience of seeing red. Linguistic representations are amazing for communication. They give conceptual form to our world, but they can never, ever replace the immediate, lived experience. A highly sophisticated description of consciousness is never actually going to be consciousness itself. Moving right along to Section 2, the architecture of knowing. We're going to look at moving from being to knowing. So how exactly do we bridge that gap? How do we move from that raw, immediate existence into communicable, analytical understanding? Well, it's basically a ladder. It starts at step 1 with a raw, phenomenal experience. We take that raw experience and turn it into a concept. Then we give it a name through language. Next, we link those concepts together to form a proposition. We apply logic to test those propositions, and finally, we arrive at step 6, knowledge. This is a literal ladder climbing from simple being up to complex knowing. It begins with what is deeply present and ends with what can be logically understood and shared with others. Now, the absolute game changer on this ladder is step 4, the proposition. Think of it this way. A single word like rain is just a concept, right? But when you say, it is raining, you've dynamically shifted from just throwing words around to creating a proposition. It's a structured claim about reality that we can actually evaluate as true or false. This makes the proposition the essential, vital bridge between mere language and actual verifiable knowledge. Which brings us to Section 3, constructing our social world. Let's talk about the power of shared meanings. Up to this point, we've mostly talked about language as a way to describe physical reality. But language does way more than just describe the universe. It literally builds our reality. Money, property, citizenship, laws, where these exist in physics? Nowhere. A mountain doesn't need a word to exist, but a $20 bill? That is literally just a piece of paper until we all collectively agree it has value. None of these everyday pillars of society physically exist without collectively recognized concepts and shared language.
We actually build human civilization using what are called constitutive propositions. Unlike a scientific fact, like, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, which just describes an independent physical reality, constitutive propositions don't describe reality. They create it. When a judge bangs a gavel and says, "You are guilty," or a government declares, "She is a citizen," they are literally altering reality through shared rules and collective recognition. It's kind of like magic when you think about it.
You start with a subjective experience, something completely trapped inside your own head, like an isolated island. But the exact moment you use language to express it, it crosses a bridge. It becomes available to someone else to interpret and respond to, creating intersubjective meaning. Language acts as the ultimate rescue mission, transforming our entirely private inner lives into a shared intersubjective world.
All right, on to Section 4, the map and the territory, where we'll look at navigating representation and reality.
Now that we've built this massive architecture of knowledge and social reality, we really have to recognize its limits and our conceptual distance from actual reality. Think of it like this. The map is our language, our science, our philosophy. It's all our descriptions. The territory, on the other hand, is our awareness, our direct encounters, our lived existence. The maps we create are incredibly intricate and wildly useful. But you wouldn't stare at a map app on your phone and think you are actually feeling the wind in the forest, right? Knowledge mediates reality, while awareness directly encounters it.
And this brings us to a huge, blinking warning label for modern life. We can become experts in descriptions of life without actually examining how life is being lived. It is so incredibly easy today to get caught up in theories and constantly studying the map that we completely detach from the actual territory. We discuss the concept of happiness constantly on social media without ever pausing to examine our own direct physical experience of it.
Finally, let's head into Section 5, the human threshold. This is all about integrating analysis and presence.
This is where the whole shebang comes together. You have physical reality driven by science, subjective reality driven by awareness, intersubjective reality driven by language, and logical reality driven by propositions. But notice what is right smack in the center of all these intersecting forces: you, the human being. We have this absolutely unique superpower to simultaneously experience reality subjectively and analyze it logically. We live permanently at the threshold between presence and representation. So, how do we keep our balance at that threshold? We have to perform the return movement. Earlier, we climbed a ladder from experience up to knowledge. Now we take our high-level knowledge, push it back through language and interpretation, distinctly focus our attention, engage our pure awareness, and bring it all the way back down to raw, lived experience. Without this return trip, we literally just get stuck in our own heads.
This return movement is precisely the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is accumulating an increasingly accurate map of reality, but you can possess massive amounts of knowledge about life without actually knowing how to live it. Wisdom is knowing how to read the map without tripping over the actual rocks in the territory. It's maintaining that delicate, perfect balance between the analytical mode and the existential mode.
Which leads to this really beautiful thought. Before we can say I know, there is already the undeniable fact that I am. Foundational presence must always precede our linguistic descriptions. You simply cannot have the analysis without the existence.
The ultimate goal we are striving for in this explainer is true integration. We don't want to eliminate analysis for awareness or vice versa. The deepest form of understanding is holding both together. To analyze your experience without losing contact with the experience itself. To know the map without ever mistaking it for the territory. You are the threshold where those two worlds meet.
I want to leave you with a pretty provocative question to take with you today. Look at your own daily routine, your habits, your inner monologue. Are you spending your life merely studying the map, overthinking, describing, and endlessly analyzing? Or are you actually walking the territory? I challenge you to step away from the descriptions today, even just for a few moments, and simply inhabit the experience. Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating threshold with me.